This is AI Inside, episode 52, recorded Thursday, January 23rd, 2025. Samsung's AI agents. This episode of AI Inside is made possible by our wonderful patrons at patreon.com/AI Inside Show. If you like what you hear, head on over and support us directly, and thank you for making independent podcasting possible. What's happening, everybody? Welcome to another episode of AI Inside, the podcast where we take a look at the AI that is layered throughout so much of the world of technology. And it's quite a week for artificial intelligence. I'm one of your hosts, Jason Howell, joined as always from the other side of the country by Jeff Jarvis.
It's cold here.
It's cold?
It's cold.
Isn't it? I mean, usually this time of year, it's pretty darn cold.
It was 7
there,
degrees
right?
this morning.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, that's not just normal cold. That's like, oh.
No, that's
oppressive cold.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Gut busting, yes. Do you have to, are you tasked with like shoveling out the driveway?
My wife says, remember how old you are. So luckily we have somebody come and do it. It's a long, steep driveway, and I'm very clumsy and have fallen on it.
Oh, okay. Well, that's nice that you don't have to do that. I've always thought that snow is the kind of thing I love visiting, but I'm happy to not live in it. You know,
well, these days you can go to New Orleans and Florida and visit it.
Yeah, weird. Strange occurrences happening in far more ways than one.
Yep.
Before we get started, big thank you to those of you who support us on our Patreon at patreon.com/AI Inside Show. That's really the thing you need to remember, because I'll tell you in a second, AI Inside Show is a commonality of how you can find us. But patreon.com/AI Inside Show, like Carrie, one of our patrons. Thank you, Carrie, for supporting us. We could not do this show without you. And if you are watching live while we record, welcome. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast. That way you don't miss any future episodes, AIinside.show. And then finally, one more thing to let you know of, which is the new YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/AI Inside Show. Makes just a little too much sense, doesn't it? Of course, I misspelled it on the on-screen thing. But if you go to AI Inside Show on YouTube, and I think it's actually /@ AI Inside Show. There we go. This is how it's supposed to look. Just do a search for AI Inside Show in the YouTube search box. That should take you to our new channel. I broke it away from my channel just because I felt like the show needed its own channel to thrive in, and anything that we do related to the show can now appear on this YouTube channel. So all the video versions of the show, all of our live streams from this point forward, just go to @AI Inside Show on YouTube, and you can find it there. Go subscribe, please. We've got a lot of subscribers in the week since I launched it, and I'm really happy about that, but we'd love to get those numbers up. So head on over. And thank you for the slight confusion. All right. With that out of the way, let's talk about the big news. I think the big news this week, even though it's not like it's news, but it's also not news because it's old news and new news, is the Stargate project. Why is it new news? Well, because now President Trump and Sam Altman, OpenAI, have announced the Stargate project once again, with a $500 billion investment over 4 years, potentially over 4 years. It's all about increasing AI infrastructure development in the U.S., of course, because everything right now is all U.S. all the time, including AI. It's the largest private AI investment to date. I mean, $500 billion investment. That's pretty massive. $100 billion deployed immediately. That starts in Texas, and I know you have thoughts on this. I think
yes, I do.
Yeah, so I'm really curious to hear what you think about this.
So it's PR. It's an announcement. Yeah. Fine. Is it 100 million? Is it 500 million? It's all just a number on paper. Well, or what we used to think of as paper is now a number on a screen. It can change any minute. It's not really devoted. Elon Musk made fun of it and was jealous of all the attention to it. And so they don't have the money.
That's so funny. That's so interesting, especially when you consider, I mean, in such a short amount of time, how seemingly attached at the hip Elon Musk and his own personal agenda seems to be with now President Trump's kind of agenda with Doge and all these other things. I guess that doesn't necessarily mean that a person like Elon Musk can't disagree or whatever, but it's not a matter of disagreement. He's flat out saying like that there's aspects of this that are untrue and that are, it's almost like he's,
So and then Sam's coming back and he's getting all pissy, and so that it's an eighth grade lunchroom that the New York Times is covering. It was the lead story in one of the papers today that Musk was fighting Altman. I mean, geez. So that's part of it. It's not new. Construction's already underway. This was announced. Right. I think the insider. The Information reported this, I think, last April. So this has been going on.
It was back in April. That's right.
And then a few things struck me. Who's not here? Microsoft, Amazon, Google, right? A whole bunch of players are not involved at all. Who is involved is OpenAI, who's going through money like crazy, so they don't have any money. And Oracle. And the other thing that the Information had as a story this week, which was interesting, they were arguing that Oracle and Salesforce should merge. And the reason for that was that Oracle doesn't have the money to keep going the way it is. So is this the losers party?
The losers table?
Yeah, right. And I'm old enough to remember when Donald Trump went to, was it Minnesota or Michigan? Where was it? Wisconsin. They're all the same. Wisconsin. They're all cold. Yeah. I'm a Midwesterner. Please don't take any offense. But, and announced the Foxconn factory, which is now nothing but an empty dome. An orb.
Oh man, I so remember that, and like, oh wow, that's a huge deal. And I do remember at the time people just saying, "Yeah, just wait. I mean, is it actually going to happen?" And yeah, sure enough.
And the town and the state went through a lot of money to make this happen, to clear the land, to get all ready, and then crickets, nothing. Right. Mm-hmm. So there was a lot of hype and a lot of coverage of Stargate. And in the end, so you build data centers. Okay. Mm-hmm. I don't know that necessarily says that that's going to just throwing more money at it is not necessarily going to get you to the next insight that's going to take artificial intelligence beyond where it is. So fine. And I don't know where government is needed at all, because if people want to invest in AI, fine, go invest in AI. Nothing's stopping you right now. Mm-hmm. So, so I'm in news-ish.
Yeah. To put the scale of the investment into some perspective, just to make some comparisons that I came across while looking into this, twice the combined R&D spend of Meta, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, and Google in 2023. Just FYI, roughly the equivalent of the GDP of the United Arab Emirates. Just some interesting things, but meant, I think, largely meant, from President Trump's perspective, obviously, meant to show that, America means business when it comes to artificial intelligence. We don't play second fiddle to anyone else on the world stage when it comes to this. We are the supreme leaders of artificial intelligence. And what does any of this mean? I don't know. Like who does it serve directly? I mean, building this infrastructure, do we even know like is that what, AI for the government or for industry?
It's an investment, and nobody's going to invest their money unless they see the potential of a return. And again, fine, build the data centers. I've got nothing against that. But as we'll know, and by the way, one important angle of the story too is that Microsoft in this process basically freed OpenAI from being tied to the hip. And so now Microsoft is only the host of first resort, or they have the opportunity to down. But OpenAI is no longer required to use OpenAI for all of its compute, which may be a relief to Microsoft. It may be part of their negotiation of the new cap table. I have no idea, but that's just an angle. It's part of all this. So all these players are involved here in all kinds of ways, and who's not there, who's there, how they are.
Right.
But the question I think you raised just then, Jason, is this going to be the scale that is necessary going forward? Is there a business justification for it? Can we afford it? Is it necessary? And I think that the Chinese are giving us a contrarian lesson here. Segue to the next story.
Yeah, no, indeed. Excellent. Well done. DeepSeek R1, I believe is what you're talking about, an open source Chinese reasoning model. And that's been getting some attention as well due to its powerful performance in things like math, coding, reasoning tasks. It's actually outperforming GPT-4o, outperforming Claude 3.5 Sonnet on math, even though it's smaller. And part of the reason why is what makes it kind of unique here, other than its open source kind of, open source beginnings, is that it's trained not on these like massive, vast data sets, but on pure reinforcement learning, which essentially just means that the model is improving through trial and error, which really goes a long way to enhance its problem-solving abilities. And in fact, in the case of DeepSeek, it jumped from 15.6% to 86.7% simply by just practicing and trial and error and that, which really suggests that these reasoning capabilities can be tackled, can be achieved without, just shuttling massive amounts of proprietary data into it. Instead, kind of relying on the effective training strategies that are implemented and how that's done. So,
and the other piece to this is that one of the reasons they had to do this in a smaller scale is because they couldn't get the chips. And they had a limited number of chips. And Cade Metz and Megan Tobin in the New York Times said, and I'll quote here, "But the performance of the DeepSeek model raises questions about the unintended consequences of the American government's trade restrictions. The controls have forced researchers in China to get creative with a wide range of tools that are freely available on the internet." So do we need $500 billion to build a good, usable AI? Is that a waste of money? Are we just being American chest thumping? We got to be big for the sake of being big.
Yes.
I remember. So I'm sorry, I'm going to do an Uncle Jeff moment here. Way back when I was at Time Inc., which at the time was a real company and still had lots of money. I was there. This is how old I am, folks. I was there at the time when if you needed to scan a photo in color so that you could print it in color, you needed a huge machine as big as a dining room, just gigantic scanner, very expensive, specialized equipment, all kinds of things. And the company bought this one machine that was incompatible with all the other systems we had. And I, being an ignorant just editor, I wrote a long memo saying, "This is stupid. Why are we doing this?" And I got scolded in two ways. One, well, it's their department, and so it's their machine. They get to pick what they want. Mm-hmm. Number two, if Time Inc. is spending this much money on it, it must be the best. Right. And there's that kind of economic macho, especially when you tie it with the macho of technology. And I think somebody should be doing a good story, just questioning based on what DeepSeek apparently is doing, and we don't know everything, but it's open enough it can be examined. Is that level of scale necessary? Is it economically sensible? Is it what we're going to take to get to the next model, or is it instead insight that we need to get to the next model and the next phase of how this operates? So I'm way too ignorant to answer those questions, but I at least will ask them.
Yeah, well, and if it served the development of these models up until now to think of it through the lens of, okay, more data is better for training, then it makes sense why some might believe that to still be the case. But I think what this tells me is sometimes when you're operating sometimes when you're operating with limited resources, it forces you to think about things differently.
Yes.
And
yes.
You know what I mean? And it seems like maybe right now, the last couple of years, the hammer and nail analogy is that we've been and actually I don't know where I'm going with that analogy, but in my mind it works. But is essentially like what has been working is
It's more like a jackhammer and nail.
Yes, yeah, that's a good point. It's like a jackhammer with the amount of data that's being shoveled into these things, because that must be the way to get them to be better models, for better output and better, bigger, smarter, all that kind of stuff. But it turns out that maybe when you operate from that limited opportunity, not having access to that and having to do things differently, maybe you do come up with a system that is better or just different. And it looks like that's what this is.
Yeah, and I hope that it's not going to require brute force, high scale data and compute, because that means there'll be more players, more competition, more innovation at lower cost. I hope. Yeah. I don't know whether there's really a lesson from DeepSeek, but I hope there is.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Available for free via API.
If you know what you're doing, and I don't.
Yes, if you know what you're doing, you can get started right now with DeepSeek. All right, we're going to take a super quick break, and when we come back, I'll tell you about my little my field trip.
Yay, can't wait.
The last couple of days, and we can talk about the AI associated with that. That's coming up in a second. Well, I have down here not one but two little things that I wore around my neck during my time there. Do you save your conference badges like some people do?
No, I'm going to say something obnoxious. I still have mine from Davos.
Yeah,
but I get rid of it. I used to take a lot of swag bags home, and my wife just has a fit with them because as every spouse does in the world, and so I've gotten rid of most of those too.
Yeah, the canvas bags. We've got a whole closet full of
Do you save technology. The lanyards?
No, I don't.
No, okay.
I don't. I never did, and I've had moments here and there where I've had like lanyard. I don't know.
Envy?
I've seen other people's collections. Yes, envy. Yeah. That's the word I was looking for. Where I was like, oh, maybe I should have, but at this point, it's too late. Like, if I was going to do that, I've long since thrown away any of the ones that I wish I probably should have held on to. And so at this point, it doesn't matter that much to me. But anyways, I have a couple that haven't made it into the trash yet from yesterday's Samsung Unpacked or Galaxy Unpacked event, which I attended. I went down Tuesday morning, and they've for those who don't know kind of how some of this stuff works, this was actually my first Unpacked in person. I've always covered it from a distance. When I worked at Twit rarely, if ever, thought that like going to an event like that made a lot of sense for their model. It was like, well, why wouldn't we just cover it from the studio? We'll get the same amount of views, and it doesn't make sense. Like, what are we going to do having a reporter on the ground there? So I never really went. So it was interesting from that perspective, but Tuesday morning, get there, and it's what they call content capture, which is like an opportunity for certain members of the press to go in and kind of play around with the devices before the announcements were ever made and capture your content for whatever you're working on. And then Wednesday, which was yesterday, they had the event from the stadium, and so it was interesting. It was fun. It was big. I mean, you see it on the live stream. It's that like gigantic like display matrix that that they all walk out on and everything. And it's cool to see it in person, because it really is kind of like a technology rock show or something,
Yeah.
But this show's really more about artificial intelligence, and I think this really fits into it because at the end of the day, where we are with smartphones right now is there is very little in the way of innovation when it comes to hardware. Very small gains here and there, but what the companies are really leveraging right now and really trying to point out that they're doing better than everyone else is the artificial intelligence that is, driving the new updates and the new features on their software. And Samsung was all about it with Galaxy AI. With they were touting agents, so agents came up a number of times. And I think what I thought was interesting about that is there's a certain kind of definition that I think I'm forming around agents, and I feel like Samsung's agents are kind of like agent light, or it's like an agent first step. It's not these things that are doing all these things for you without you kind of kicking it off or what. I guess they are. Like, essentially, like, one of the things they pointed out as agentic is you can you can collaborate with Galaxy AI, talking to Google Gemini, talking to whatever Google apps and Samsung apps you have installed in your phone. So I could do a voice command that is, essentially goes into my calendar and find the next 5 basketball, games on my schedule and drop those into Galaxy Notes or whatever. And so, like, is that an agent where it goes into the calendar, it searches for all the entries that have something to do with basketball, and then takes that information and puts it into your Samsung Galaxy Notes? Like, they would want that to be seen as agentry. And I guess it kind of is, but it's kind of like agent light, in my opinion.
Agent-ish.
Yeah. Yeah. Getting there, maybe.
Yeah. And I mean, on my phone now, I can't do that.
Yeah. Right.
So that is a step, and it's a practical step, but it's not a terribly impressive step. Does Samsung have its own model, or is it based primarily on using Gemini?
Yeah. Using Gemini. You didn't hear about Bixby at all?
No.
Bixby's
which dead. Gone.
Poor Bixby. Yeah, see, that's the thing. I don't know that Bixby's dead. I just think Samsung's like not feeding Bixby anymore.
Uncle Bixby, who we don't talk about anymore. Yeah.
Yes. If we just stop talking about Bixby, people will forget about Bixby. I don't we just stop feeding him. We're not killing him. We're just not allowing him to live.
So what's in the story? I didn't really kind of understand the personal data engine and the AI select.
Oh yeah. So
what's that stuff?
So personal data engine, essentially, my understanding of it is on a platform perspective on how you use your phone. It's essentially a way to collect over time information about how you're using your phone, the apps you use, what you do with them, where you go. I mean, it's really collecting a lot of information about how you interact with your phone, and kind of from an ambient perspective, how you live just with the phone with you. And the idea being that it collects these data points all on device so that it can inform some of the AI that's happening on the device to either suggest things for you or, that sort of stuff. And maybe that's where kind of the agentic clause come in at some point. That seemed like it was setting the stage for to me, it seemed like it was setting the stage for something down the line to say, we're taking all this information that the phone can collect about you, and we can put it to work somehow, somewhere down the line. But I don't know that we're necessarily seeing the work yet, but the foundation is there.
Right.
And I think that could be cool. Right. If people are okay with the fact that there is, all of this collection / understanding of how you use your device happening. It's kind of like the Microsoft recall thing, where, it's neat that it could do that, but people, at least initially, felt weirded out by that.
Yeah. And it sounds like there's nothing here that says, oh my God, I've got to get a Samsung because of that.
Well,
it's value added to the phone that they have.
Yeah. I mean, you asked about AI Select, and essentially AI Select is this like it's almost like a component of like Project Astra, let's say, because really what it is what's on my screen, analyze the contents of the screen, and based on what you see there, suggest actions. So if you see a phone number, you could suggest the action to call, or if you see, any number of things, whatever those actions are. I'm not sure.
Right.
I would need to play around with it to see what it actually offers up. But yeah, there's really, there is, I think you're spot on. There is nothing that we heard about yesterday from a software perspective, especially where I was just like, this is why you absolutely have to have this. And I think being there at the event, I heard that from a lot of people that were there, just kind of, and this is, I think, a good topic for this show, which is just like this general kind of like numbness around everything being artificial intelligence as the important, technology, the important new feature set. I mean, you stop hearing, you stop hearing anything anymore when you hear the word, AI repeated 1,000 times during a presentation.
Yeah, you're right, and it's like we made fun of 5G.
Oh yeah.
Back in the day, and that was just speed. That was all it was. Right now, AI
Right.
has become meaningless to a great extent.
Got to get the current terminology so people know you're on the track. And I remember, that's a good comparison with 5G, because when that happened and every phone that came out had 5G at the end of the name of it, because they really just had to get it in there, make sure you knew that this phone had 5G. And I remember saying at the time, I can't wait for the day when 5G is so boring that we don't have to call it out every time. And we eventually got there. I do think we'll get there eventually with AI, or maybe we won't.
The problem is 5G stood for, you knew what it meant. It meant speed.
Yeah.
AI doesn't have a clear definition because it could be a million things. It already is a million things. It can be translation, it can be transcription, it can be agentic, it can be all these things, search, creativity. So it's not going to be sufficient to say AI inside.
Yeah.
It's going to have to say we
Except
have
for this
some
show.
Right,
Yeah.
right. yes.
Then it's
well, because
sufficient.
we have it all inside here, layers. Right. So, right for them, they've got to have to say more.
Yeah.
More specific.
Circle search, got some upgrades to where it can recognize when a phone number is on the screen and ask to call it. Little quality of life improvements,
which is great. Yeah.
I think the question that I come back to is like my sister. She's a Samsung user, but she has a pretty dated Samsung phone, I think, at this point. And if she was to go into her phone company and get a new phone, and they said, "Oh, and it does this and this," is that the kind of thing that she would be like, "Oh, really? It does those things?" Or would she be like, "Yeah, I don't care."
Sure.
And I kind of guess it's the latter. And so I don't know. Companies really see the need to just push and punish you with the amount of AI smarts that they've put into it. And I wonder if we're kind of at I don't wonder. I think we are at a point where for a lot of people, the second they start hearing the AI avalanche, they start tuning out, and worse, they start rolling their eyes and like, oh my God, here we go again. You know what I mean?
Well, it's also hard to say that something is inside. I mean, Intel inside. But the hardware can still excite. So the story that you had to share had, I think, the Ultra in the pictures, because you could see it was big. And I get visions of my old Nexus 7. And what excited me was, oh, that hardware looks nice. Oh, do I want that? Oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But it does this, it does that. And part of the problem is that I've got to figure out how to make it do that. And will it do it in a way that's relevant to me? And is it more just cruff? And the problem for Samsung, of course, is all those years, they added on all kinds of functionality nobody wanted or used. I think they're better now, right? Mm-hmm. But still, reputationally, I don't know if I'm ready for the bridge to Samsung. But
yeah, no, they are. I mean, from a hardware perspective, Samsung does a really great job with their hardware design. Their design is always just really beautifully done. And I have the S24 Ultra, which was last year's model, and I mean, like I love when I have it in my hand, like this feels like a beautiful, elegant smartphone. And I get that from the S25 Ultra that I saw, while I was there and everything. Their phones are really, really wonderfully designed.
Yeah, their hardware has always been nice.
But the kind of innovation around hardware, they've really slowed down there. And each year the devices are very minimally changed between them. It's like last year's and this year's S25 Ultra versus S24 Ultra look in most ways almost identical. Right. And so they're the only place that they really can easily, in quotes, innovate seems to be that they're putting all their eggs into the software basket. And right now it's AI season.
Yeah.
And so everything ends up AI.
All God's children got to have AI.
Yep. Everybody's got to have their own. Got to collect them all. So anyways, it was fun though. Like separate anecdote. If you've ever watched the Unpacked event on the live stream, you see the huge stage with all the huge like the gigantic displays and everything and wraparounds, and it just looks massive. And at the end of yesterday's event, I was actually behind the stage where they had this like product experience area. And when they were shuttling us out, I walked the opposite direction of where I was supposed to go, because I was like, I wonder if I could kind of get a glimpse of behind those displays. And all the lights were on, and it was all lit up and everything. And oh my goodness, it was like a marvel of technology, like how the
It's like 200 screens.
Oh, I mean, far more than that. It was
put
massive.
Together. Yeah.
Yes, all put together and like beautifully cabled. And it was, I got some video of it, and I was just like, man, that is amazing. Like somebody thought that up and crafted that, and it's just a cool technological accomplishment.
You know, I wrote a book, the Object Lesson series, about the magazine as object. And I'm fascinated about screen as object. And it really hit me, Jason, and this is off topic, but I like the topic. One day, a couple of years ago, walking down the street in New York, and at every subway stop now, there is a huge screen for advertising, of course, right? Mm-hmm. And, you know, it's probably 5 feet tall and 3 feet wide, something like that. And you think about back in the day, the expense of a screen. The expense of having a screen of any sort. And of course, in the cathode ray tube, the depth of it and the heat and all of that. It's amazing how, and Newark Airport's new Terminal A, same thing. At every gate, there's like a 10-foot high screen. And it's just, yes, it's a screen. No big deal.
It's just a screen. They're such a commodity now. Like it's just these massive screens, and it's just no big deal. I mean, you go to Vegas. I was just in Vegas at CES, and I feel like every building there now is a 120-story screen, or the Sphere. You know, everything's just this massive, high-resolution screen. It's really impressive where we are now versus where we used to be, and it was a lot more expensive and a lot less impressive.
Yes.
Yep. Well, this is not related at all, but it's Google. Google announced a bunch of education-focused tools. And in particular, there is an AI part of this announcement for the classroom coming to Chromebooks with Google Workspace for Education Plus. And essentially, this brings for those Chromebooks in the classroom, is my understanding anyways, tools like Notebook LM, Gemini app integration, all of this integrated into learning management systems for teaching and for learning, and also integrated into Chromebook Pluses, I guess, for education, which reminds me that you've got a Chromebook Plus, and I'm curious to know
I do. Thank you.
How you're liking that, but anyways, more. It was
interesting
AI
because it's
coming to the classroom.
It seems this seemed aimed at high school, because they say Gemini, safer learning with Gemini for teen students, tailored vocabulary lists for Gemini in classroom. It's an interesting list. Save time with Gems. I don't know what that is for you. Integrate Google AI into your LMS. I should know what an LMS is. I don't know.
Learning management system.
Thank you very much. As a parent, you know this stuff. Google Plus with AI built in, as you just said. Safer learning with admin tools, because they're always going to slop on a lot of admin tools, which already exist for both Workplace and for Chromebooks. So that's there. New features for read along in classroom, video creation with Google Vids, new devices for teachers and students. I don't know what that's going to be. So I'm glad that they're still investing in education, offering things in education. Yeah, so good.
Google Vids. You threw that out, and I was like, oh, wait a minute. I remember hearing about that. It was but then I feel like we heard about it.
There's nothing more.
Nothing, but yeah, what is it?
To create polished videos with the help of AI, generate that's all it is. So
yeah,
I think it's to make PowerPoints.
I totally forgot about Vids. That's right. I certainly haven't seen it appear anywhere. Is this only in?
They were using it for sales training videos, was the original idea. So they've imported this into education. I mean, it's the PowerPointing of the world, right?
Okay, interesting. I wonder if my daughters will end up, because they have Chromebooks through their class, and use all the Chrome tools and everything. So that's interesting. So then more so, seeing the AI tools integrated into the devices that students are using. And I wonder how teachers feel about that. I mean,
that's what I'd love to hear.
Some teachers are welcoming.
Yeah.
Other teachers almost certainly very resistant to something like that.
Well, the other problem is that it's not just the teachers; it's whoever is the gatekeeper for technology in the schools. And
yeah,
safety.
that's true.
I mean, God,
Yeah.
I'm now a visiting professor at Stony Brook University, which is a STEM school, an R1 school. It's amazing technology there. But I had to sit through 2 hours of stupid videos about how to be safe on technology, how to do it. And at one point they say, you got to have a safe password with 87 different characters and written in Sanskrit.
goodness.
The next one says, no, that's all old. You shouldn't do that. And they don't read by the videos. And so it's how the tech gods of the organization let you use this stuff.
Yes.
Is
Yeah.
interesting.
That is true. That is
Because they always whine, it's more to support, it's more to maintain. No, I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
And I can imagine in a given school district where everybody's overworked and has plenty of problems, I don't know
Right.
how hard
Now
it
you
is
gotta
to
learn
get this into the teacher's hands.
Yes. Right. That's one more thing to have to figure out and troubleshoot around.
I mean, it'd be interesting sometime, Jason, if we found somebody, a teacher who is using AI in the classroom, just to quiz them about how that's working for them and what's happening.
Yeah. Yeah. What are those challenges? Yeah. And what are some of the success stories? I'd love to know about that too. Real quick, how is the Chromebook Plus? Do you like
so
it?
I can say where I got it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So this was from Jason. It was Jason. Thank you very much. The screen is beautiful. It's thin as can be. It's a Samsung. It doesn't have touchscreen, which I wished for, but that's not a killer. But as you warned me, they added a numeric keypad, a three-level numeric keypad on the side, which means that the keyboard is off center to the screen, and it's still driving me a little nuts.
I couldn't get myself used to it.
Yeah.
I just couldn't.
So I'm kind of used to it now. I put down tape over the numeric keypad because I'm never going to use it. And instead of hitting the delete key, I'm often hitting the minus key or whatever. And so I put tape over there, and then I put tape on the F and J, formerly known as the home row in typing class, right? So I could feel automatically where I was without having to look, because I was constantly having to look at the keyboard to orient my fingers. If it were not for that, if they had just gotten rid of that numeric keypad, this would be a perfect machine. Now, the other thing is, so I'm getting used to the keyboard, but then when I go back to my Mac keyboard, which is what I use for the shows, then of course I'm usually off.
Yes,
So
right.
it transmits like a virus.
Yeah.
So, but I'm happy to have it.
brain
The
can only
fan hardly comes on. When it does, it's quiet.
Yeah, I didn't never
Again,
hear
beautiful
the fan,
screen.
so, yeah.
So thank you very much.
Oh,
Much appreciated.
geez. Yeah, absolutely happy to put it in your hands because I probably wasn't going to use it, and the off center keyboard aspect of it just threw me off so much that I was like, I can't.
There's a lot of Chromebooks and a lot of Windows machines that have that have the numeric keyboard on the laptop.
Well, yes, they do.
So it's not rare.
No, and I actually did get into a brief conversation with someone at the Samsung convention who had a Samsung Windows laptop that was very similar to the one that you got, but with Windows or whatever, and had the numeric, and he had no problems with it. And I was just like, I think
Windows users have high tolerance for
maybe that's it. High tolerance for pain.
yeah.
Microsoft and Google both offering more AI for less. I definitely noticed this. I'm sure you did too. In my so I have had on my personal Gmail account, I've had like a free year of their AI whatever. And I had originally, when I got that offer, I wanted to like transfer it over to my business, which is for this, for the work that I do for our podcasts and stuff. and they wouldn't allow me to transfer it over. So I was like, okay, so I'll just keep it in personal. I just don't have as many uses for it there. In order to get it on the business account, it would have been something like $20 a month or something, which I was like, okay, not worth it to me. But now suddenly all those Gemini hooks are appearing. Google Workspace now getting Gemini included, yes, but the plan for everyone increases by $2 per month. So you're not paying $20 but you don't have a choice but to pay $2 more, essentially.
It's not as expensive as Netflix, but not as much fun either. I don't know. How useful do you find it? Like on Gmail?
I have, I need to force myself to use it more, because the handful of times that I've thought to use it for something, I haven't gotten it to do roughly what I wanted it to do. And I'm like, and so I'm underwhelmed. And so I'm less likely to do it again.
Right.
I don't know. It's almost just like a slightly better search is really what it seems like to me.
Yeah, it'll do something. It'll summarize an email thread.
I don't really do much of the summary. Yeah, I don't do that in my emails.
No, I don't really. I'm not no longer, going through companies where I had 40 email threads, right? So I don't need as much.
Yeah.
A, B, it'll suggest writing to me. So I said, okay, I'll try this once. And I just had, it'll be good to catch up. And it was responding, it would be really great to have a cup of coffee in person soon. Well, no, I don't want to say that. Exclamation point, exclamation point. It makes everything more enthusiastic than I am. Don't you know me? I'm not enthusiastic.
So
I'm grumpy.
Enthusiastic. You're so right. That's exactly it.
And then I also, are you using Help Me Read? Have you gotten that one? It's an experiment in Chrome. So in Chrome, anytime I can double click, and I get, in addition to my choices about going back or forward or translating or any of that, I now have a little box, Help Me Read Experiment, and it will summarize any web page I'm on. So, okay, well, when I get to certain columns, like on Twit this week, Leo sent us to somebody's write-up of something that went on about 87 screen loads. So I just remembered to do that and summarize it for me, and I said, okay, good. Now if Leo brings it up, I can talk about it.
Totally, right.
That's fine. But it's RAG, so it will only respond to what is on the screen. If you ask a related question that comes to mind, which I did once, it said, can't find that answer here. Nope.
Don't know.
So I want that as functionality too. It's just, it's siloed too much in how the AI is presented, but it's all experimental. It's all interesting. I'll use it more. You'll use it more, and we'll figure out what we like.
And I think that's the point, right? Google wants everybody to use it more. So now it belongs to everybody. And Microsoft, of course, doing the same.
Yeah, they're all trying to get more users on this stuff because there's not much of a barrier to entry here.
Yeah.
I can go to meta.ai for free anytime I want. I can go to lots of different places and get AI.
Yep. So, Copilot now included 365 personal and family users. Again, in that case, subscription costs raising by $3. So you are paying for it. But I think it's interesting that you brought up, read for me or whatever, because I think that ties into a story that after the break, I came across this. I was like, oh, that's a good discussion conversation to have. So we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to talk a little bit about cognitive offloading. That's coming up in a second. All right. Cognitive offloading. Essentially, when we shift our critical thinking tasks to other tools, which when you mentioned before the break, summarize this story for me, which, by the way, is something that I do too, because sometimes it's a really nice time saver. It's like, I don't have time to read this entire top to bottom thing.
Is it worth reading?
The highlights, or is it worth reading? Yes, exactly. I just need to know enough to know. And so fire that off, get a shorter condensed thing, gives me what I need, move on with my life. Well, so cognitive offloading and this study actually there's an article that I put in here from Psychology Today talks about how reliance on generative AI, and specifically in the terms of the study, it was just ChatGPT 4.0 that they tested, impacts learning, impacts our motivation, our performance. And the study essentially says that it erodes, over time, it erodes critical thinking, it erodes reflective processes that would normally be the building blocks of lifelong learning, let's say. So when we do a cognitive offload of reading the full story to give us the summary, we might get what we need. I think this was kind of like the long and short of it. The short-term impact is great. We get what we need right now. We can write that essay, with the tasks that it lists, or we have the bullet points that we need to do the thing immediately right now. But long term, we don't have over time, this development of critical thinking skills and comprehension and everything, because we aren't challenging ourselves to do that in the same way that we were prior to. Summarize this for me, so I've got a shorter thing to go from, as one example. And I think that's interesting. I've wondered this about myself, because sometimes I use these tools as an assistant for writing, not necessarily write this article or this thing for me, but write a starting point, and then I can go from there and kind of craft something that works for myself. And I do wonder if I'm doing myself harm by doing that, in the long term. What do you think?
So not
work in
surprisingly,
education. You've probably got a better perspective.
I think it's a reasonable article. I think this is worth, and it's based on an academic paper and a study, and I think it's absolutely worth studying. No question about it. I'm all in favor of that. And the article was not panicky at all, so I'm not going to have a moral panic go across. However, it may be a little too soon for concern. Now, you might argue with me, well, rather it be too soon than too late. But I think that we don't have enough experience with these tools and how people are really using them. I don't think I could be wrong about this. I was going to say, I don't think students are necessarily habitually using chat now, but I think they may be using it more than I know. But still, I think that's one thought. The other is I come back to Plato's Phaedrus, where it is said that Socrates, Phaedrus, one of Plato's works.
Oh, okay, yes, okay.
Where it is said that Socrates obviously complained about writing. And we've heard this a million times. And he said that the people who write will cease to exercise memory because they rely on that which is written, calling things to remembrance no longer from within themselves, but by means of external marks.
Yeah.
Right. So you can go through that. You can go through the idea. We didn't have dictionaries until basically after print. Encyclopedias came along later. So those devices were seen in some quarters as kind of lazy, as a Reader's Digest view, right? Mm-hmm. And speaking of which, Reader's Digest was that. Well, you don't want to read the whole article in Harper's. We'll give you the short version of it. Totally. Once or twice, I had an article I'd written for like TV Guide, which is already that short, and they made it shorter in Reader's Digest.
But that's exactly what you're talking about, right? Like summarize the page.
We've had this. Take
the longer, make it shorter. I'm going to read that instead.
Harper's Magazine, my other book magazine, I point out that it started in 1850 with the idea that we're going to find the best of what's out there, so you don't have to go through it all. We'll read it all so you don't have to. And then, of course, we go to the calculator and the fears about that and the worries about that. And then we go to the worries about spell check, and we go to the worries about losing penmanship. I just saw a story about that last week. No one's writing anymore. And now we see stories. The Atlantic had one of their normal panic stories that nobody's reading anymore because of this stuff. But is that necessarily bad? The other thing I'd like to explore from this article, and then I'll shut up, is if we offload some cognitive effort, does that free up a student for more creative effort? Does that free them up to get to the idea quicker and not zone out? What might the benefits be, and how might we craft curricula around that? So I think it's a fact of life. It's going to be here. It's worthy of study, but I think that we need to look at things in a more of a full circle of risk and reward, and how we find both.
Yeah. Yeah, it is very interesting. I mean, I do leverage these tools more and more, and it's been something for me, what I've wondered about is kind of from a writing skills perspective. And, 2, 3, 4 years ago, when I was preparing for an episode of a podcast, I would, if I was preparing a story, I'd have the story up on one screen, I'd have my notepad on the other, and I'd go through the story and pull out the pieces of information that I thought were important, and then I'd put that into kind of an organizational thing. And often I would do that whether I was the one reading, or conveying the story on the podcast or not, primarily because doing that process helped me understand it better, and I had a more of a felt sense of what that story meant by going through that work. And, in the last year, I've been leveraging the AI tools more and more and, trying to maximize my time because I've got so many different things I need to do now that I didn't before. And so any way that I can shave time down to do it all, I'm going to explore it. And so sometimes, I will have a summary of an article, and then as I need to, I will touch into the article for pieces of information that I need. But, I'm still kind of writing the thing, but I wonder if this condensed approach, if I'm actually learning less from a long-term standpoint, did the stuff that I prepared for 5 years ago, did that have more of a likelihood of sticking with me than the stuff that I'm preparing now,
Or if you read the Cliff's Notes for War and Peace, but you weren't really ever going to read War and Peace,
right?
Are you better off or not? And I don't know the answer to
that. That's true. That's a good point. I've never read. Have you? Have you
read?
No,
I haven't. Nope, I haven't.
Okay.
I should. But now, you know what I would do now? I would listen to it.
Yeah.
Is that cognitive overload? No. It's. I mean, Cliff's Notes were always made fun of for this purpose. Listening to books was made fun of. That's not really reading.
True. Totally true.
And I now rely on listening to books. I get mad when books I want to. If I read it for research, I have to read it in paper because I have to mark it up and do all kinds of things. If I read it for pleasure or just interest, I really want an audiobook now because I can extend my reading. And we used to make fun of that, and I made fun of that. But Daniel makes a really good point in the comments that as a dyslexic, he finds the process of using AI helps him learn more. I think it's an excellent point. Daniel, that happened. I forget what it was. I think something I said on Twig, where somebody came in and said, here is my perspective because of my life is that I use this tool in a way that you don't, but I find it useful. And I think that different lived experience and different use is so important to understand here. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you, Daniel. And also, Lou apparently wants to find a partner to read War and Peace with. If someone else will commit to reading War and Peace,
you're going to be together for 5 years, but it's okay.
You're going to be reading that for a long time. Finally, because I know we do need to let you go here in a few minutes, a Reddit user felt ill after a mild workout, dismissed the symptoms to things like dehydration and high caffeine. Eventually, as we all do nowadays when we're feeling yucky, turned to ChatGPT, which suggested, rhabdomyolysis? I'm not sure.
We have to ask ChatGPT how to say that.
Yeah. And it probably would know, which is a serious condition with muscle breakdown that's harmful to the kidneys. From there, sought medical attention, and doctors confirmed that diagnosis, and that person was hospitalized for a week, lived to tell the tale, and now I imagine uses ChatGPT for everything.
Rhabdomyolysis.
Rhabdomyolysis. Okay. Myolysis. Okay, yes, that checks out. I'm like looking at it while hearing that. I'm like, okay, my eyes didn't see it that way.
And by the way, was that a cognitive offload for me? Yes, it was. And it was very nice. I went and I double clicked on the word, and right there was the speaker, and I got the word. It was great.
Apparently, the Redditor also used ChatGPT to interpret lab results. I wonder how the doctors felt about that. But
I'd be very careful about using. I mean, it's bad enough to go to Dr. Google and Dr. Facebook. But Dr. ChatGPT, we know that it doesn't know facts and gets things wrong. How often do we say this, right? Nonetheless, It's vital, and this is great because it did find correlation and made a suggestion that turned out to be valuable. So to me, the key is how do we make the chats less dogmatic and sure in their responses and more tentative? Well, I don't know, but it could be that this is a correlation. You might want to go to your doctor and ask about this. It could be something else too. It could be nothing. I'm not going to say. We got lawyers. I don't know. But that may be frustrating, but I think it's important to then take you back to expertise.
Yes. Oh, 100%. Super important to not rely on these things. But you know, and you know what? Stories like this are going to happen inevitably.
Oh, yes.
People are still going to do it and they're going to get it right. There are also probably examples of this story where people got the wrong diagnosis and that, of course, didn't get written about. You know what I mean?
One of my favorite stories that I wrote about long ago, I think in What Would Google Do, a reporter talked to me and he in Facebook was just saying, weird, I've been falling lately and this happened. And some of it was in private and it's just things that he said on Facebook. And suddenly he started getting ads for treatments for multiple sclerosis. And so he went to the doctor and indeed was diagnosed with MS.
Wow.
And it wasn't as if, the first reaction of many people was, well, that's surveillance capitalism, but that's creepy and it knows too much. Well, it helped him.
Yeah.
Right? And it was certainly AI of its sort when this happened that made a correlation for the sake of the advertiser.
Yeah.
Right. And so those correlations, what we're talking about too, isn't just the technology. We're talking about correlations. Correlations are not causation. Correlations have to be judged cautiously, but that is the basis of machine learning, especially in generative machine learning. Generative AI is all about correlation. Yeah. And correlations have value.
Yeah, 100%. Fascinating. Yep. Interesting stuff. Well, Jeff, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I do know that I need to let you go. JeffJarvis.com is where folks should go right now and order the book, The Web We Weave.
Or the Good Book Parenthesis, or magazine, or all three. Yeah. Yes. What a smorgasbord to be.
You will read like you've never read before if you bought all three books. Thank you, Jeff. This is wonderful. JeffJarvis.com. Always love doing this show with you and great to have you here. Everything that all of you watching need to know about this show can always be found on the site at AIinside.show. Let's see here. That is where you can go to subscribe to the podcast. You can find all of our episodes, including if you go into the episode pages, you've got the audio version, of course, and then you've got the video version embedded. So really, it's kind of like the best place to go for all things AI Inside. And then I should also mention, as I did at the top of the show, new YouTube channel. This is the new YouTube home for AI Inside. It's youtube.com/@AI Inside Show, or you can just go to YouTube and do a search for AI Inside Show, all one word. And please do that because then you'll be subscribed. Then you won't miss it when we do the live show. We don't want any of you to miss the live show. And finally, the Patreon, patreon.com/AI Inside Show. You can go there and you can support us directly. You can get ad-free shows, Discord community, which, we've got some activity picking up in Discord community, which I'm really happy about. Some good conversations happening there. Some hangouts. You get an AI Inside t-shirt if you support as an executive producer, which is the top level of support. But you know what? We have 5 of you right now. Dr. Do,
yes.
Jeffrey Maricini, WPVM 103.7 in Asheville, North Carolina, Paul Lang, and Dante St. James. I'd love to add some more names.
Thank you all.
So, thank you all so much. We really could not do this show without you. Patreon.com/AI Inside Show. All one word. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being with us. And we will see you next time on another episode of AI Inside. Take care, everybody. Bye.